Chapter 10, Land of Seeds, Another Life. In the Land of Seeds, life began each morning with a soft rhythm, like wind moving the branches, making them dance with all living beings in a gentle symphony that stirred hearts alive. There was no noise in the Land of Seeds, no screens, no surveillance cameras, no evaluations, and no cold concrete walls. It was another life entirely. Streets were wide and clean, decorated with children's drawings and pleasant scents rising from flowers everywhere, and every building was designed in a smart, earth-friendly way, covered by boughs and plants. People did not run or race against time as they did in the Land of the Stars. They lived calmly, smiled at each other, paused to share a smile and a greeting, and cooperated like one woven fabric. In the Land of Seeds, people no longer worked to collect stars, to eat, or to pay bills. Shared apps and algorithms organized work according to each person's wishes and abilities. Technology had advanced to the point that work was no longer a duty, but a choice and a joy, and people worked much more than they had in the Land of the Stars. Each person chose what they loved. Whoever wanted to farm, farmed. Whoever loved programming created new apps. Whoever loved caring for others focused on children and elders, with no wages, no profits, and no deals, only sharing, making, and improving. In the morning, everyone worked in fields, on rooftops, in courtyards, and in public gardens. Organic farming flourished everywhere without pesticides or massive machines, using precise, near-invisible technologies, and whatever grew was later shared in the participation market, with each grower receiving a fair share. Those who could not farm contributed to community life and production or technological development in other ways. After noon, everyone returned to their passions, sport or art, with many playing ball, some joining small theater shows in the square, children painting house walls, and many young people gathering in open dialogue circles. Free bodies. Every evening, bodies moved through the streets with a light grace, as if following a deep inner call. Smiles bloomed everywhere, given freely even by people who did not know each other by name, because everyone felt part of one body, a whole cooperative community, a living weave moving in peace and care, awake to its unity. The mindset of competition that ruled the Land of the Stars had disappeared, replaced by a philosophy of cooperation and complementarity. These were free souls in bodies liberated from the slavery of stars. Free dance became one of the daily rituals that helped heal and free these bodies. The daily dances were not just art or entertainment. They were a way of healing. They were a natural method to release stored emotions and restore balance to the body's energy. There was a daily practice for everyone, morning, noon, and evening. Slow, harmonious movements that opened inner energy channels, cleared old memories, and sharpened bodily intelligence. At night, lanterns made from waxed leaves glowed as people gathered in squares to play music on wooden instruments, and then bodies began to dance. Not a technical or regimented dance, but a dance from the heart that washed away the residue of the Land of the Stars. Some danced with tears, others with laughter, and some spun in circles as if searching for a point of cosmic balance. It looked like a symphony of movement with no one watching or comparing. Only freedom and full harmony with the self. This free dance activated subtle neural pathways, released joy hormones, boosted creativity, moved vital energy, strengthened immunity, and awakened intuition, simply reconnecting people to themselves and to each other. Since free dance and natural food became daily rituals, diseases had faded, intelligence rose, and anger and tension dropped. On the other side, meanwhile, in the Land of the Stars, people stayed trapped behind screens, panting after electronic stars, sitting still all day with tired eyes and quieted souls. Rumors slipped and spread in whispers. Have you heard? In the Land of Seeds, they don't wear our dull gray coats. They wear bright colors, each person in different clothes. And they dance in the streets. Yes, they dance and sing. News of the Land of Seeds sounded like fantasy, stirring curiosity and debate. But fear still gripped most of the Land of the Stars. The buzz spread mostly among children and teens who longed to move. In the Land of the Stars, stillness was the rule. Hours and hours behind screens, motionless sitting, digital work, stiff bodies and rigid minds. Within that programmed life, a new idea emerged. Dance was not just movement, It was resistance. People realized that bodily stillness drags mental and emotional stillness with it, and that when the body does not move, it does not release joy hormones, but the chemistry of tightness and fear. Some teachers noticed the quiet rebellion and filed reports up the chain, but the idea had already started to catch and spread like wildfire. In one school's basement, 5 teens met, turned off the lights, and played a smuggled recording from the Land of Seeds, a strange music, soft and wild at once, alive in a way nothing in star music could match. Feet began to shake, shoulders to sway, and Lubna stood and spun in a unique loop. She danced as if breaking inner walls, as if saying to the world, "I am not a machine for collecting stars. I am a living being." The more they practiced free dance, the more their desire grew to reach the Land of Seeds, and the more they felt another life was possible. So dance became another seed of freedom in the Land of the Stars, which now saw a steady flow of people toward the Land of Seeds, despite all the crackdowns star leaders tried to impose. The land shone with light. In the Land of Seeds, in new neighborhoods covered in green, children played barefoot under the sun with faces bright with life, running freely with a deep, steady ease. There were no camps belching toxic gases like in the Land of the Stars, and the sun's warmth reached the ground again. Life returned to the soil, plants rose, and the rains came back, as if nature forgave what had been done and decided to give the Land of Seeds another chance. This chance was offered to all with sincere intent who worked without waiting for reward, people who truly wanted a different life, a new land whose seeds they planted with their own hands. Every morning, Maryam, Layla, mother of Irfan, and many migrant mothers, children, and youth walked to the fields that had once been dry, cracked ground used to store old plastic containers. But in their eyes, it was a garden, and with simple tools and a few seeds someone had saved for years, they dug and planted. They refused the plastic food bags the system distributed and declared with courage, "We will not eat what we do not know. We will not feed our children plastic paste. We will wait for our harvest. Our new land will feed us." The effort spread. On some rooftops, wooden boxes filled with soil and seed appeared. In home corners, children watered seedlings with rainwater caught in old jars. All this was quietly watched, but the High Star Authority did not see a threat. In the weekly tower meeting, one officer said, "There are increasing signs that some far neighborhoods refuse to pick up official food rations." And another asked coldly, "What are they eating?" Only to hear, some started to plant on roofs, in corners, in abandoned places. A third laughed. "Farming? In concrete and dry ground? Let them dream." Elsewhere, on a rooftop, a small child picked the first tomato he had grown and told his mother with pride, "Mama, it tastes amazing." Even if the star leaders ignored it, the shift in food for the people of the Land of Seeds had an unexpected effect. Eating what children grew with their own hands was revolutionary, and their intelligence rose sharply. A new society in the Land of the Stars. No one knew the word elections, because the ruling had not changed in decades and passed from father to son among families in the towers who never set foot in the streets, and if they did, they wore gray costumes to look like everyone else. People only saw their rulers on phone screens or giant billboards, fixed smiles, oversized glasses with secret tech, cold slogans, and star handouts. In the Land of Seeds, a new idea and a new society took shape. People gathered in an open square before a simple platform, and candidates stepped up one by one, each with a vision, a plan, and a clear desire to serve the community. A slim man named Jamil, who had worked in alternative medicine for years, said softly, "I want to launch a health center that uses healing herbs rather than imported drugs. This land is rich, and I want to develop it with modern technology. These herbs are a treasure we must use wisely." People applauded, and then Suha, a young woman in solar energy, said, "I want to advance our energy system further, teaching children to use the sun, wind, and water so we are not at the mercy of tech we do not make or understand. None of the candidates asked for pay, calling service an honor, vowing to live like everyone else in regular homes, eating the same food, and sharing in daily work from farming to cleaning and maintenance. At day's end, people voted using tools built by the Land of Seeds engineers, approving projects led by a responsible person for a limited time, with no top-down regime controlling everyone. People could propose new projects at any time, in any field, and vote for the person to lead them. A core rule required every steward to deliver a public monthly report and take questions directly. And anyone who failed or broke values of transparency and respect had to resign immediately to make space for someone else. This was a unique experiment that built strong awareness and social bonds, founding common life in a different way, with no higher authority and no top ruler, only a bridge of trust and mutual responsibility among people in this new society. That bridge was made firm by a circle of wise ones, leading scientists, educators, philosophers, and community builders. Collective intelligence in the Land of Seeds, life was not run by orders from hidden high centers, but by simple laws that prioritize the common good and harmony with nature's powers. Nothing was complicated, and every person carried seeds of collective awareness while growing a deep sense of shared responsibility. This way of thinking was called collective intelligence, a form of intelligence that did not try to outdo others, but to unite with them, where each person felt like a cell in one body, and any harm to one part harmed the whole, just like the wisdom of bees or ants. There were no ranks or positions, but circles of wise practitioners formed naturally in every field. There was a circle of engineers who found ways to harness renewable energy from the sun and wind without harming the earth, making energy available to all freely and without limits, driving life forward in ways never seen before. There was a circle of doctors who blended old wisdom and modern technology to heal with minimal intervention and maximum natural harmony, aided by advanced technology and AI that offered information and care to everyone. There was a circle of growers who turned every neighborhood into a garden and every roof into a farm, bringing healthy organic food into wide abundance and even nurturing new fruits and vegetables unknown before. There was a circle of teachers, perhaps the most crucial, who planted first values and high ethics in children, and then a lifelong passion for self-learning for the common good. These circles were neither elected nor appointed. They formed based on readings from a smart neural network designed at the start of the new land. This network worked in step with human awareness, reading someone's real engagement in service, their intention, their readiness to give, and their ability for creative collaboration. There were no stars as in the old world, but radiant imprints, unseen by the eye, measured by an inner sense in every person, the sense that distinguishes the genuine from the pretender, and the devoted from the exploiter. Technology was not a tool of domination, but of coordination and ease, and AI was part of the system, programmed by one principle: most useful to people, most useful to the earth. The stone of knowledge, Irfan had grown older, a few gray strands lining his hair, but his face stayed clear and smiling, as if life chose to reflect itself in him. He built a wooden home ringed by mint, lavender, and fig trees. His mornings began with fruit and coffee, a short garden walk, and a creative thinking session with the circle of wise ones. Life there was not primitive, but chosen, with technology not rejected, but given back its meaning. In the Land of Seeds, there were no smartphones as in the Land of the Stars. No screens everywhere, no eyes fixed on numbers and fake stars. Instead, each person carried a small, smooth device shaped like an egg or a polished pebble, the stone of knowledge. It looked simple, but was a gateway to all learning, shared experiments, and open conversations. A conscious, wise AI that stayed with each person like a digital companion, connecting them with the group. It was a collective invention, born from a partnership of young engineers, scientists, and philosophers, not used to collect stars or to surveil, but as a wise tool to guide, teach, and help, to access knowledge, to communicate calmly without commercial aims, to move, to ask support, and even to listen to music or meditate, serving people rather than consuming them. The network in the Land of Seeds was free and open source, gathering no data and spying on no mind, with every digital act aligned to the common good in full transparency. And its AI, embedded in the stone of knowledge, taught children, aided growers, and guided builders and workers across fields, according to what served all. From the start, it was programmed by one truth: human society is one body. What harms one harms all, and what serves one must serve the whole, or it is not acceptable. This awareness of the greater body kept technology wise in the Land of Seeds. Unlike the barren tech that spread in the Land of the Stars, and raising this collective awareness, especially in children, was essential. Technology was never used for profit, and there was no money in the Land of Seeds. Technology was used for care and growth through the stone of knowledge that everyone possessed, a new mindset entirely. No one needed to rule or be ruled because everyone chose to serve. So the Land of Seeds was no imaginary utopia, but the real fruit of a collective inner shift that began when people decided to stop the race for stars and start the true journey of growth. With time, the people of the Land of Seeds expanded, not only in number, but in awareness, creativity, and wise technology. Technology advanced as never before, while staying in service of people and nature together. Life expectancy rose beyond 100 years, disease nearly vanished, and abundance stopped being a dream and became a shared reality. By contrast, the Land of the Stars kept circling the same closed loop: competition, psychological warfare, poverty, pollution, illness, and a merciless hierarchy. Their land did not expand, it shrank, and more people slept hungry or dug through trash for scraps, with rare medicine, crowded hospitals, and care reserved for those with many stars. Despite disaster, the ruling class kept distributing poisons wrapped in happiness, blaring music, silly videos, new apps, all to distract minds from thinking, while food industries pushed addictive chemicals until most people could not think or discern, living like primitive creatures whose shrunken minds were rewarded for obedience and punished for thought. Life Points, Irfan's home, with its big garden, stayed open to visitors, especially children, and in one corner, kids sat around a slab of wood painted with colored circles, a new kind of game. Layla, Irfan's mother, asked, "What is this?" And Adam laughed. "Our new game, Life Points. Whenever we help, plant, or laugh together, we earn a point." She asked, "Do you remember the stars? Do they mean anything to you now?" And the kids laughed in chorus as a small girl said, "Stars? Haha, that was the grown-ups game." Then one child stuck a sheet on the wall with the new game's rules. True hug equals 1 life point. Free laugh equals 1 life point. New plant equals 1 life point. New friend equals 1 life point. The children did this naturally, but what they wrote was a new charter for the new land, and Layla sat among them, feeling something deep move in her heart. Seeing children invent a world where value was not measured by beating others, but by cooperating and caring, loving life and loving others as children of the same life, the same pulse moving through all. Her heart flowed like a river of care for them all, and yet she missed Malik, her husband. She remembered him every sunrise and wished the men would rise too and join them in this new land, because no one could enter this garden unless they broke their chains with their own hands. Chapter 11, Camp Number 17, was one of the biggest labor camps in the Land of the Stars, full of exhausted men with pale faces and dazed eyes from pills distributed every morning under the pretext of boosting protein and energy. Though everyone knew they were a mix of sedatives and mind stimulants designed to crush free thought and fix obedience. Work ran for 20 hours with only 4 hours of rest inside cold metal rooms, with no room for dreams except the dream of escape. That night, in the mechanical maintenance unit, a young engineer spoke with 2 companions. He had cracked the code of one of the small drones that watched the workers and had mapped surveillance around the camp walls. And the tense talk began. One said, "But they inject us daily. How will we hold up without the pills?" Engineer Amin looked into their eyes and said, "This poison blocks thinking, but it cannot stop the heart from refusing. We will start by stopping gradually. We will store the pills and not swallow them. Some herbs in the waste area can help flush the toxins. I will get them soon. We must move, but where is Malik?" No one answered. In the days that followed, some stopped swallowing the pills. Others hid them under the tongue and spat them later into toilet corners. The guards did not notice at first, but as days passed, the men's eyes began to change. Everyone looked for Malik. Had he escaped first, or had he been killed? No one knew. Then the promised night came, the day of the public show, when the chief supervisor came to display production on a giant screen. Suddenly the lights went out. A spark from the maintenance unit hit. A small blast confused the guards, and a roar rose from inside the camp. "Enough slavery. We are not machines. We are free humans. We want to live." In moments, chaos turned to order, because everything had been planned for weeks. Locks were disabled, the small drones were jammed, and the men surged to the emergency gate that had never been used. Amin ran in front with a guidance device he had stolen from the control center and shouted, "Come on, do not look back, do not fear. Follow me to the land of seeds." At dawn the next day, on the edge of the land of seeds, women stood in shock. They had thought the men were dead in the camps, or alive only on the outside and dead within. But there they were, thin, scarred, and tired, yet their eyes shone with hope. It was a moment of new birth, restoring balance. After the men returned, the most important task was to help them enter the new way of life and weave into the new community. In the main square of the land of seeds, the men who had escaped only days before gathered with faces marked by hardship and eyes holding a spark of a new search. As children ran between them and the women watched in quiet, a mix of joy and caution, Irfan entered with the wise ones, and beside him stood his mother Layla, one of the earliest guides in the Land of Seeds spiritual school. Layla carried a deep sadness because she knew nothing of her husband Malik. But she tried to move through it, while Irfan felt sure his father lived, though he had no trace. Layla faced the crowd in a soft white robe and said with calm, deep voice, "You are not who you were. You crossed from darkness to light, but now there is another journey, no less important than leaving slavery, the journey of inner freedom." Amin stepped forward and called out, speaking as if for the others, "We organized the revolt inside the camp. How can you say we are not free yet? And who are you? Who is the leader here?" Layla answered gently, "Yes, brother. Carrying freedom in the body is not the same as being free in the spirit. In the land of the stars, you were taught one model of manhood: control, force, suppression, and restraint. Your feelings were labeled weakness. Free yourselves from all this so you can enter our community, our homes, and our hearts. As for the second part of your question, I am Layla, of the Circle of Wise Ones. Here there is no top leader as in the land of the stars. Here we elect a circle of wise ones on a regular rhythm to decide together the future of this new land. My son Irfan was the first spark of revolt, migration, and rebuilding. The child once labeled different and mentally delayed by the system became the acting leader of this revolution, but he stepped away from the seat of command. Layla spoke with warmth and steady tone, drawing men and women and children close, and said, "We are a living weave. Each of us is like a living cell within a whole. Each one is different and completes the other. No one bears an identical imprint. Each is rich in individuality and should be proud of it, loved as oneself and loving others without conditions, working when and how one wishes to grow the community, working for the common good that is also the good of the self, doing good work as a believer who brings safety and peace within and around. This is our community, our covenant, and our way." Irfan added, "True manhood is not in holding power, but in knowing when not to use it. It is not in getting orders, but in building bridges and understanding what others need." Feminine and masculine energy. A silence settled, then Layla drew two crossing lines in the sand and said, "Every person carries a unique blend of what is called feminine energy and masculine energy, the pulse of life that runs through us, the same life force in all things behind this wide creation. In both men and women, This energy is the driver of life and making. Feminine energy is softness, receiving, holding, patience, and care. Masculine energy is action, protection, planning, facing, and decisiveness. The talk ran until evening, sharp at times. But most men understood that the true revolution happens inside and then shows outside over time. Most were ready to cooperate and truly make this shift. Layla began daily circles, where men learned to listen without interrupting, to express feelings without fear, to cook with children, to farm, to sit in silent nature, and to dance freely with women and children to restore lightness of body and joy of being. These simple skills carried the seeds of the new society, the new land. For the first time, feminine and masculine energy stood together in the land of seeds. Control and fear no longer ruled. The aim was balance, and the first goal of this stage became restoring balance in the relations of men and women. Those early days of rebuilding and restoring balance were vital, yet the question of leadership kept returning. In one meeting, a man raised his hand and asked, "But in practice, who is the leader? Who decides?" Irfan smiled and said, "A leader is whoever serves a specific aim for a limited time until it is achieved. One leads a project because one is the most fit in that field. In the land of seeds, we do not elect leaders to control us. We choose leaders to execute projects, and we change them when needed. Leadership here is a collective act. It is not a glory or a rank. It is a responsibility to deliver real results in farming, in technology, in health, in learning, not measured by fake stars. Yet the largest challenge was learning. The land of seeds was growing fast, and signs of old violence, rivalry, even narcissism, and the hunger to shine sometimes returned. The traces of the black seed, the D factor planted in many children, which had to be drawn out with kindness and firmness. The feeling of joy, each morning, the men from the camps met in workshops and learning circles with selected trainers to help them join the land of seeds. Among them was Fadil, a man in his 60s whose face bore long years and whose steady gaze held history. Fadil had lived in the camp early in life, like all men, but he escaped and spent years alone in the desert before news of revolt reached him and he came to the land of seeds, where he became one of its key teachers. Before him sat Walid, a new arrival from the land of the stars, in his 30s, body stiff, eyes anxious, voice unsure. Walid said softly, with a shy edge, "Sir, I cleaned the whole area and arranged the tools as you told me, exactly and quickly. I hope I was among the top today." Fadil gave a sad smile, rested his hand on the wooden table, and said, "No, Walid, I am not your sir. There are no masters here. You are master of yourself, or a slave to it if you are not free. And we do not grade here, and we do not look for the top. Then how do I know I did well? How do I prove I deserve a place in this new community?" Walid asked. Fadil sighed and said, "Here we do not prove anything to anyone. We work because life moves, and work is movement. This movement, through work, is natural, not a duty and not tied to prizes. We love work because we find joy in it. And if someone finds no joy in the work, it simply means the person is not in the right place." Walid fell quiet, then said, "You may not believe me, but I do not understand the word joy. I do not feel it." Fadil studied his face and said, "I know, my son. I was like you. I spent 20 years there without even a name, only a number and a chip. I did not know what it meant to be a human. I was only a machine inside a bigger machine." He added, "Joy does not come from a prize or from beating others. That is a primitive joy that keeps you chained to overlords. True and lasting joy, the kind that lifts you into a fuller, aware human, comes from within. Working for others' approval or reward is in truth a kind of slavery, but work that rises from the self, from personal will, to bring benefit to oneself and others is what frees and completes a person. And how do I know what is important or high work if no one rewards it?" Walid asked. "There is no important work and low work, no high and low. Those ideas were planted by the star rulers to pull you far from your nature and make you their servants," Fadil said. "Every human carries a special passion, a draw, sometimes a strong desire, to act, to move the life energy within in some field or form. It is enough to listen to that inner voice." He added, pointing to an ant walking by his foot, "Look, Walid. See the ant following her sisters in a straight line for food? Do you think anyone ordered her to do this? Walid nodded. I do not know. I do not think so. Exactly. No one ordered her. She listens to the inner voice that guides her. This voice lives in all creatures as an inner compass that organizes life and brings wide harmony. Just like what you see here, Fadl said, pointing to the ants. Walid sat for minutes trying to absorb the flood of new ideas, then said, Your words are beautiful and different from everything I know, or everything they put in my head for years. But I feel a stiffness in my heart like stone. I feel nothing. Will I change? Yes, Fadl said calmly. It will take some time, but you will change and you will heal. The environment you live in here will change you little by little. In truth, a human is the fruit of the environment. As rain began to fall, Walid looked up and said, I did not know rain had a sound. It is as if I hear it for the first time. Because you have begun to return to life, the sky is watering your heart. It seems it heard you and wanted to send a sign. Chapter 12, New Thought. In a warm morning in the land of seeds, Leela sat in a small circle under a great mulberry tree, with women and men who had recently arrived from the land of the stars, while children ran through fields laughing, planting, and learning straight from the earth. Salwa smiled with pride and said, My children are wonderful, truly clever and outstanding, and I do not understand how the star system ranked them so low, because they deserved more. Leela looked at her carefully, gathered her thoughts, and said, When we say our children are excellent or superior, we unknowingly rebuild the mindset of stars. Salwa stared in surprise and said, I am only expressing pride. Is it not right to encourage our children? Leela smiled gently and said, Of course, but encouragement is not comparison and is not the chase to be above others. In the land of seeds, no one needs to be exceptional. No one needs to be better than anyone. The soil does not compare thyme with rosemary. The sun does not favor the rose over the daisy, and every being here is itself and enough. Salwa said, We were raised to chase excellence and to fear failure, even with our children. Exactly, said Layla. That is what must be unlearned. Success in the land of seeds is not measured by grades, but by harmony. And a child is not asked to surpass others, but to discover who they are, to contribute as they can, and to live in balance. Two little girls ran up laughing, with hands covered in soil, and Layla said, Look at them. Do you see excellence? No, you see life, freedom, and a living link to the roots. She added more softly, In nature there is no best, there is only what fits and what is in tune. And these are the values planted here. Because once the illusion of excellence fades, doors open to creativity, to respect, and to a new civilization that rests on cooperation, not competition. Salwa lowered her eyes, feeling like a parrot repeating lines planted in her head back in the land of the stars. Layla continued, We are all learning, and the land of seeds does not need perfect children, but free children. An olive tree is not better than a fig or a vine, for each tree has its qualities, and all serve people. If people learn to build a community and a civilization of harmony through cooperation rather than competition. A woman who had been listening quietly said, Even in nature there is competition. It is a survival mechanism. Layla answered, True, yet cooperation as a social system is the best for continuity and adaptation. The creatures that have long filled the earth are those whose societies rest on cooperation and adaptation to their environment, like bees and ants, while species that rely on competition rarely endure and seldom adapt to change. Competition may elevate the strong and place a leader over a group, but that leader in that group still cannot endure without the intelligence of the whole, which is cooperation, and this is a knowledge taught by science. Layla looked up at the swaying branches and said, It is as if nature teaches us indirectly how to live together, as if nature is an open book for those who wish to read. Salwa said, You are right. Nature teaches everything if we truly look. So why do they not teach this to children in the land of the stars? Layla laughed and said, because real knowledge frees people, and those rulers do not want that, so they flood children with shallow, false knowledge that blinds them to the truth. As they spoke, dozens of mothers had gathered to listen, for free ideas grow wings. Old illnesses. Mesa and Nora had been close friends for years in the land of the stars, with Mesa's husband dead by suicide in a camp, and Nora's husband missing or escaped. No one knew, and their friendship deepened in the land of seeds, where change was profound. They sat on a small wooden bench among trees, watching their children play with mud and shape strange figures that reflected a free imagination. Mesa said, "The longer I live here, the more it feels like I am healing from an illness I never knew I had, as if my soul was sick with pressure, with comparison, and with a constant fear of not being enough." Nora smiled and said, "Yes, and I now see the old system was not only harsh but sly, dividing people as if they were in a race, seeking the best and the brightest and the most efficient, and yet forgetting something crucial." "What is that?" Mesa asked. Nora looked at her palm and said, "It forgot that life runs on diversity and complement, not on competition. Think of the human body. Can we claim the heart is better than the kidneys, or the brain is smarter than the liver, because every cell and every tissue has a role and a wisdom?" Mesa nodded. "That sounds like what Madame Layla says." Nora said, "I heard her and loved the example, because billions of cells cooperate every day inside us in quiet and with a stunning order, without conflict or comparison, with each part knowing its role and doing it with care." She added, "This is what the land of seeds is returning to people, the deep understanding that we do not need to outdo one another, but to complete each other through contact and cooperation." She reflected, in the land of the stars, they taught that happiness is bought, won after struggle and strife. But the truth is that happiness lives in the bond between heart and heart, between person and person, between person and nature, which is the relationship linking us with each other and with other beings. Mesa said, "Competition floods bodies with the chemistry of fear and anger, while cooperative relations release the chemistry of joy." Nora said, "After long years of programming and brainwashing, it is clear that real happiness does not come from beating others, but from feeling part of a greater whole, working with others, feeling not alone, and feeling a living part of building something beautiful beyond oneself." She looked up and said, "The land of the stars cut us apart from ourselves, from our children, and from one another, while here we are reconnecting with that greater womb, the competition virus." The migration from the land of the stars to the land of seeds continued, and many newcomers needed to be welcomed. Irfan moved from circle to circle, helping men from other camps adapt to the new cooperative way of thinking. That morning, he watched children running, laughing, climbing trees, making curious devices, and painting their faces with natural colors, while one boy sat alone. The child's name was Zain, with honey-colored eyes and hair like ripe wheat, with a beautiful face that always looked tense. Irfan sat beside him and said, "Do you want to join us? We are trying a dance called the mud dance." "What is the point?" the boy asked. "No point," said Irfan. "We are only having fun." The boy hesitated and said in a stiff voice, "Time matters, every minute must be invested, and every effort must bring a result." Irfan laughed and stayed by his side as the child blurted out that he did not like that kind of play and wanted to win something to feel his worth. "That," said Irfan, "is a virus." "A virus?" the boy asked. "Yes," said Irfan. "A virus planted by the star system when it told us life is a race, and life means superiority, and whoever does not win does not deserve life." Zain fell silent as the words touched something deep. Irfan asked, "Do you know how life begins and how beings are formed?" "No," the boy said. "From cooperation, from coordination, from harmony," Irfan answered. "Every cell of the body does not try to beat the others, the liver does not compete with the heart, and the lungs do not envy the brain, because together they act in a magical harmony to bring forth a human." "I do not feel that," the boy said. "Because the virus is still working in you," Irfan said, "but it weakens with laughter, with dancing, and with gratitude. I will tell you a secret," he said. "What is it?" the boy asked. "The competition virus hates dancing and joy. and it hates stillness because it lives on tension, on comparison, and on the constant need to be the best. Breathe, Zane. Breathe deeply, relax, close your eyes, and tell me what you feel. Zane paused and said, I feel something strange in my chest, warm and alive. That is the warmth of life, said Irfan, the life energy inside you. And you are life, Zane, and you need nothing more than that. What do I do with this energy? The boy asked. Water it with love, with play, with dance, and with connection to others, said Irfan, and it will grow and rearrange everything within you, until you no longer run to win, but become free and creative, dancing and living a real life. The turning point. After some days, Zane entered a workshop with teacher Nadim, one of the guides who accompany children, where the room was alive with tools, wood, colors, and the scents of clay and dried plants. Zane watched a child shape a strange instrument from sugarcane, while another painted a large canvas, and he asked shyly, This is beautiful, but what is the goal of this painting, or that instrument? What is the use? The reply came, There is no set goal. We are responding to an inner call to make, we are practicing creation, and that fills us with a solid sense of self, a joy that rises from within, and a trust in ourselves and in the world that grows and takes root. Zane remembered that such things were disliked in the land of the stars, and that people preferred to buy ready-made objects, even at high costs, chasing stars to buy things, to stack in homes, without tasting the joy people here spoke about. He stared at a piece of wood before him, not knowing what to do, then suddenly lifted it and began to sand the edges without thinking, as if his hands moved on their own, carving and shaping without a clear goal, only presence and creation. A child asked him, What are you making? I do not know, said Zane. I only feel I need to do something, to make something with my hands. Hours passed without his noticing, and a new light moved in his eyes, not like the old rush to gather stars, but something deeper, a warmth through the hands and the chest. Teacher Nadim patted his shoulder and said, I have seen this often. Children who came from the land of the stars thinking work has worth only when it is graded and rewarded. Yet something innate in them resists and knows that the act itself is the reward, that the real achievement is to express yourself, not to win applause. Zane said, I fear becoming who I was there. What a prison that was. And Nadim answered, Do not fear. No one returns to that after tasting the joy of making for joy, and for offering something beautiful to life. This is a turning point. Zane looked at his wooden figure, not polished but bearing a unique shape like a small heart beating within wood. And he felt a quiet pride that did not wait for any external prize. I think I will place it in the public square, he said, and Nadim asked if he did not want to take it home, and Zane replied, No, I can make many more. Nadim smiled and said to himself that this boy had reached the turning point. Chapter 13. A Garden Born from Soil, True Knowledge. Learning was the main pillar for growing the land of seeds, and in one class, the teacher Nazreen spoke with children about technology. A young child asked, Is technology dangerous? Because some say it caused the downfall and bondage of the people in the land of the stars. Nasreen said, That is a thoughtful note, and it is vital to look deeply to understand hidden layers, because technology is not an enemy, but a tool. And only the human who uses it bears responsibility, and here, the aim is to shape technology into a path that raises humans toward fuller awareness, with the same principle applying to the economy. What does economy mean? She asked, and the children searched the word using the stone of knowledge. Amin raised a hand and said, Simply put, the economy is the set of ways wealth is created through farming, craft and industry, health, and even art, and then shared among people. Nasreen smiled, saying that art may be the finest kind of wealth a human creates, setting humans apart among living beings. Another child said, Teacher, there is something not clear. Are not all resources meant for everyone? Nasreen looked around and said, In the land of the stars, wealth piled into a few hands and was kept there by design, with the aim of owning as many things as possible. The children laughed, and one said, That is silly. Because the earth gives everything and in truth owns everything. Nasreen nodded. Yes, but life lived at a lower level of awareness felt very different from what is lived here. Because those people did not feel part of the greater body that you have been raised to sense. A child whispered to a friend, "Poor souls, they must have been so unhappy, unable to feel the safety and belonging felt here, living in fear and submission and running without end after a crust of bread." Nasreen heard and said, "That is right. Their life truly was low and full of suffering. And they raised their children to keep the same way of thinking and living without philosophy, without real economy, and without the art and technology you learn." When the children asked what those children were taught, she answered, "They were forced into two things, rote memory and applause, cramming a mass of scattered facts from many fields so they could not see the world as a whole, left without true knowledge and without even the simplest powers of thinking you enjoy." They asked why people accepted that and why all the clapping, and she said, "Because they were compelled, programmed to clap for whatever they were told and to obey blindly, since rote and applause were the only way to gain stars, the money that bought things, making them chase rewards all day just to secure the basics of life, until Irfan rose and the rest of the story you know." Nasreen concluded, "In the land of seeds we are not against a thriving economy or against technology, but against dependence that turns tools into masters, because wisdom is born of the earth, and to crush nature and enslave a brother just to gather stars is a great folly. For nature never loses, while humans lose when they fail to honor her intelligence." She added, "Humans can vanish entirely if they ruin the earth's balance, while life will go on and renew with or without us. So sufficiency means living with enough, not excess, consuming with awareness, not greed, planting, eating and creating, instead of running after piles of objects, because life is living and economy must serve life, the hell within." Outside, gentle drones watched forests to guard them from fire and sent timely readings to growers about soil, while people planted on balconies, rooftops, and common squares, sharing space rather than hoarding it. Homes ran on freely flowing solar power, with water cleaned and cycled wisely. Everything simple, clean, and useful, with sun power at the heart of daily life. In the main square, Irfan sat with his son Ayman by a broad stone table and watched children splashing in water and laughing, and Ayman asked about grandfather Malik. Irfan's heart tightened as he said he did not know but felt him alive and was planning a desert search, believing his father had fled the land of the stars and lost the way and would not abandon hope. The boy asked why many stayed in that harsh land and did not join, and Irfan said, "No one can plumb the deep sea of the human soul that can build with goodness and also destroy with harm. But fear and clinging to the familiar keep many from stepping out. They fear not us but freedom," Irfan said, "because freedom asks for responsibility, and they were trained in obedience, trained to let someone else choose for them, while here a garden has been built with hands and love and learning and strong ethics, and all have been invited to come, and some do and some refuse, because people cannot be forced, and sometimes they hold to their hell without needing anyone to hold them there." On the other side, the land of the stars seethed with tension and hurled media campaigns at the land of seeds, calling it betrayal and a cultural threat. Star leaders spoke in live broadcasts claiming they alone knew the way, urging people not to let dreamers steal their children, and calling them enemies of the system and the nation. And marches formed, demanding the return of children and the destruction of the land of seeds. No one from the land of seeds replied, because a lesson had been learned: never to argue with the enraged and never to fight the one who fights, only to withdraw and invest energy in building and in alternatives. When bands tried to breach the land of seeds, their feet stopped at the boundary, as if their bodies refused to enter, for there was a different field there, soft and courteous yet firm. No one could explain it, and rumors said an advanced belt of living energy protected the place. Yet the truth was that a peaceful people believed in their own abilities without craving stars or outer prizes, and worked with ease in chosen fields, learning through life and spreading knowledge, calm and care, so that the energy uniting them grew day by day and formed a kind of soft shield that set them apart from those unlike them. Each assault failed, and the two lands turned into symbols, one repeating the past. luring minds into a numbing spiral of control for rulers, the other lifting humans into levels of awareness unknown before. I love this land. Technology kept advancing thanks to engineers and scientists born and raised in the land of seeds with a philosophy of life wholly unlike the land of the stars. And it was used above all in learning, invested in children's minds, so the land of seeds could endure and grow. In a green valley stood a great living tree, woven with biofabric that formed open learning rooms, breathing with the air and dancing with the light. And it was named the Tree of Knowledge, the first organic school in the land of seeds, where human technology tried always to honor nature's spirit and stay in tune with it. Children sat on dry lotus leaves around teacher Salma, watching light pass between branches and reflect on clear crystal panels showing images from microscopes and from the deep sea and the wide sky. A new child named Nawar, fresh from the land of the stars with shadows of ranking and fear of error still in the eyes, came near and Salma asked what he wished to learn that day. He thought and said, "I want to know how trees talk to one another." And her eyes lit up as she said, "A wonderful question, because now we will go to the central root, and you will learn how trees send electric signals through the soil, share nutrients, and how a strong tree helps a weak one, just as we do here." In an open upper branch, guides gathered under a clear dome, looking over the forest, and spoke about children from the land of the stars who still suffered from the race syndrome, with minds trained more for survival than for growth. They agreed to focus on bonding so that a child would feel safe and know worth was not tied to having or achieving, but to sensing, connecting, and belonging to the living weave of the community. And Salma added that a new kind of aware helper was being built, a growth watcher to accompany each child's learning journey and bring the right prompt or image or question at the right moment. That evening, Nawar returned to a small house shaped like a tiny world and wrote as asked by Salma, "Today I learned a lot because I felt wonder. I laughed because the atmosphere helped, and I love this land. You are our child." The next day, Nawar returned to the same tree, where in a middle branch stood a learning platform made of smart crystal plates that showed images, shapes, and even scents with great clarity, without any flat screen or phone. He approached, still amazed by the absence of wires and the break from phones and earbuds, and asked the biophysics teacher Samir where the computers were and how images showed without electricity. Samir said, "In the land of seeds, technology is not outside us, but planted in the ground and grown with us. For these crystals are fed by sunlight and activated by the field of life energy from our bodies." And he added that no power button was needed because clear intent to learn and a focused, curious mind brought the system to life. Samir waved a hand, and three-dimensional forms of tiny beings living on tree bark appeared, and children touched them, smelled them, and interacted without a screen or keyboard. Nawar said in wonder that in the land of the stars, touching anything real was forbidden, and Samir answered that there, technology was used to separate people from nature and from themselves, while here it was designed to open the senses, not close them, and he told Nawar to forget the land of the stars, because he now belonged to this land, the land of seeds. When Samir called him son, Nawar was surprised because emotional dryness had been a rule in the land of the stars. And Samir laughed and said, "Do not be surprised. You are a child of this land and thus a child of us all, because here people cooperate to build and develop as do ants and bees." And he held the child in a long, quiet hug more expressive than many words. In that school, there was no shouting and no barking orders. Everyone lived freely, with an inner harmony like a soft orchestra playing life. Emotional safety. When Samir went home, he told his wife Maria about the boy, and Maria said she had noticed from the beginning that even physical touch here was not tied to sex, but to deep connection, a daily language of care and reassurance that refilled vital energy among people. She remembered life in the land of the stars as a never-ending race filled with pressure, shouting, and tension, with people in a state of constant hunger of the body, the mind, and the heart, while here the prevailing feeling was safety, the cornerstone for building everything. Samir agreed that the sense of safety was the base of every civilization and said the work at school took much time, but the first step began at home in that embrace, in that inner fortress because emotional safety was not a luxury, but the launch pad that let people grow with confidence and balance. He said this safety was the first food that gave a deep calm and a sense of belonging and a clear place in the world, beginning in the mother's arms, strengthened in the family, and watered by the wider community. A child deprived of this air chokes slowly, without knowing why, growing up with inner emptiness, fear, and tearing, weaker in sound thinking, balanced response, and wise life choices, which was how people lived in the land of the stars. Maria said those people were victims who had not found a loving, supportive surround, with men confined in camps and mothers made into soldiers of the system, planting competition, pressure, and narcissism from early life. When Samir pushed back that everyone was free to choose well or badly, Maria paused and quietly revealed she had been part of dark psychology, helping program people with the D factor in children, a past she now meant to repair by joining the Conscious Integration Project. They agreed that emotional safety was not just tenderness, but being held and understood and believed in even before one could believe in oneself. And when people truly believed in one another, they could rise to their highest purpose as true stewards on earth, building with love, mind, and good work. The Conscious Integration Project. Engineer Hani sat in his garden with the stone of knowledge in hand and connected with teammates, including Maria, on a project to help people in the land of the stars free themselves from the old system by raising awareness from within, reducing fear and rivalry, and increasing a spirit of cooperation and mutual aid. The team drew on many fields and worked toward one aim despite the challenge. And Samir said, things in the land of the stars grew worse each day, with selfishness, chaos, and filth spreading, and he wondered how they could help when it felt almost impossible. Hani answered that they were not alive merely to stay alive like animals, but to grow and to help their sisters and brothers still sunk in ignorance, poverty, and fear. And he called for finding a way because they had turned a place into a garden and carried the great trust, with life having chosen humans with a creative mind that for long ages had been misused, but now, at least for some, had begun to step forward with a will to lift others. Yasin sighed that the problem was deep because minds were programmed and leaders wanted closed eyes and a lack of questions, caring only about collecting stars, whether in grades or in things to stack, pushing an endless consumer chase with competition as a creed while their creed was cooperation. Miriam leaned in and said the roots were rotten and learning was the foundation, because if early years were fully programmed, what could be expected later? And Yasin agreed that learning was the beginning and the end, but warned that change would take time. Fuad, quiet until then, said the powers on the central throne would never allow change that undercut their interests, wanting obedient, ignorant citizens who knew only star collecting. So the best path was quiet work with individuals, giving them ways to grow cooperative awareness through art, sport, story, poetry, and science at the edges and in associations. As Irfan had done, starting small and letting impact grow. Layla said it was like a small wave turning into a strong current, and Fuad smiled that every change needed to reach a critical mass, a small minority of people, enough for momentum to carry itself. They fell into a short silence full of hope. Then Samir said they would work with individuals and small groups because once the wave grew to its needed size, nothing could stop it. And Miriam said she was ready even if it took a full generation, and Yasin nodded. They spent long hours crafting practical programs for real life inside the land of the stars, meeting those showing a new cooperative awareness and encouraging them with distant support, a task that demanded planning and careful design to slip through the star grid. And although it was hard, the team brimmed with calm zeal to go on. When the meeting ended and most left, Fuad stood watching the beauty of the land of seeds with soft drones and the natural harmony all around, and said they would soon help the people of the land of the stars, spreading abundance and peace, and one day walking among other worlds with a radiant human civilization. The book, The next morning, near a blooming almond tree, Nora and Hani sipped a warm morning drink shaped by the Land of Seeds nutritionists, while children made plant robots that grew inside living stems, moving leaves like tiny arms in response to their gestures. Nora asked what they were doing, and a child said a simple light code had been added to the plant, so it learned from the wind and kept the pattern, and she praised the child and turned to Hani, saying sometimes she could hardly believe how safe and abundant and advanced their life was, and that no one was counting minutes to return to the gray metal sleeping boxes. Hani laughed, remembering the gray coffins that barely held a resting body for a few short hours before the noise began again in the camps, where no one even knew what they were producing. And Nora shivered at the nightmare and felt deep care for those still trapped there. Hani said perhaps they should write a book about their land, the stars, the migration, their ethics and values, sustainable growing, holistic design, organic dwellings, crystal homes, and wise technology to give people a full vision. And Nora said it was a great idea, but she wondered who would believe a world so unlike theirs. Hani said he would try and record all the details of the old hell, of stars and their new life, with their values, Irfan's story, migration, everything, and that he would lean on their wise intelligence to shape a story like no other, a tale encoded with symbols that people could pass among themselves and interpret in their own way and level of awareness so they would understand they could step out of that hell into another life. The ideal city. Irfan sat under an olive in his garden with his old friend Zaid, once nicknamed the Little Philosopher. And Zaid said sometimes he could not believe what they had built and how their life now mirrored the old dream of a city, grounded in harmony and cooperation. He said that when he remembered life in the land of the stars, he could scarcely believe they had broken free from a mindset built on force, control, and fear, and an economy built on hoarding money. And he wished the people there could feel the grace being lived now. Though thoughts of friends still stuck there filled him with sorrow, Irfan remembered that his father might still be trapped among them and felt his heart draw tight and knew he needed to move and go searching. When Zaid asked what he was thinking, Irfan said change was an inner decision and that no one could truly convince another because it was a feeling and an inner choice made by a person whose awareness had widened toward the better. Zaid asked if people chose their own hell, and Irfan said yes, in a way, not as a simple choice, but as an inward acceptance of the life they were living. He said philosophers in every age had spoken of a city built on harmony and complement, without private hoarding and without competition, but with sharing, almost a natural life full of ease without pressure or evaluations or stars. And he believed such a community had appeared in many places and times, not as a fantasy, but as a reality that might not always last because primitive patterns in humans, fear, control, and selfishness lay hidden in many hearts and could surface to break any ideal city. Zaid said it was a logical warning and that they must protect their garden, and as the sun slid down, people gathered around a long table filled with delicious food, fresh bread, organic vegetables, fruit, and many kinds of dishes unknown before, all available to everyone thanks to advances of spirit and technology together. Those feasts were held each week to encourage meeting and open talk, but Irfan still felt a tug that trouble might be rising at the edge because numbers were growing and old emotions and thoughts might still live in some hearts. Final chapter, Seeds of Disorder, Return of the Ego. In the public market of the Land of Seeds, people were used to coming each morning to take enough for their needs without surveillance, without scales, and without accounting. The only rule in the market was, take what you need and leave some for others. Yet something strange began to surface. Because while many children from the Land of the Stars soon adapted to the philosophy of life in the Land of Seeds, the real challenge began to spread among many older newcomers. Salma, one of the organizers, noticed that some new faces returning from the land of the stars were making many trips to the market each day, carrying large sacks and taking quantities far beyond what a person or family needed, without contributing, planting, or helping in any shared work. One of them, a man named Luai, entered one morning and took enough to feed many families, and when Salma gently asked whether what he had taken yesterday was not sufficient, he answered harshly that he was free and that the market was opened for everyone. Salma smiled with sadness and said nothing, but she knew something was not well. That evening, the circle of wise ones gathered under the great olive, and Salma said that old behavior patterns were reappearing, built on fear and on competition. Another elder added that some newcomers had not released the star mindset, still believing life was a struggle and that whoever did not take quickly would be left with nothing. An older woman said the land of seeds was not only a place, but a way of mind, and whoever did not rewrite the inner program would break the harmony without noticing. After long discussion, a wise one proposed crafting a way to know the intentions of those who arrive so they could tell if the person was truly ready to change. They decided to invent a way to discover genuine intention, not based on words or appearances, but on the decisions of the heart, while the thinking mind slept. And thus the idea of the test room appeared for the first time. The test room. They built a large facility entirely white, with high walls and no windows or screens, an open calm that inspired both peace and awe. It was prepared for those arriving from the land of the stars who might carry seeds of the old corruption, because experience had shown that not all who arrived had a will to cooperate or to build another life, and many had come simply for comfort or to run from the star hell. A team of the finest engineers installed the last devices under Irfan's supervision. The electronic minds were tuned with care to simulate beyond the senses, a journey where a person might live days and years in a few minutes, rejoicing, grieving, betraying, rescuing, lying, and cooperating, without knowing they were still asleep on a soft bed under gentle lights. The simulation lead explained to Irfan that each newcomer would be asked to sleep, and during sleep, a living microchip would plant dreamlike scenes where the person would face repeated life moments, unaware of any test and acting with natural instinct. Irfan listened while his thoughts drifted toward preparing to leave for the desert in search of his father, and when the engineer asked if he was listening, he urged him to continue. In one scene, the person walked a street and met a hungry child asking for food, and the question was whether the person would share. In another, someone offered a large sum of stars in exchange for false testimony, and the question was whether the person would accept. In a third, the person worked with a group cleaning a public square with no one watching, and the question was whether the person would work with sincerity or only pretend. Every choice was read by precise algorithms that weighed the deed, the intention, and the harmony between thought and action. After some hours, the person woke not knowing the scenes had been a simulation. Irfan praised the team and set a meeting for the following day with the circle of wise ones to finalize preparations before leaving quickly. On the following day, the wise ones, the engineers, and Irfan convened to define how new people would be welcomed into the land of seeds. Irfan said it was simple, because the results would be shown to a neutral council of elders with no names and no background, only acts and intentions, and if the results showed a real desire for cooperation, truthfulness, good work, and a sense of the whole, the person would be accepted and gradually woven into the community. If results showed that the newcomer still carried old programming, the person would be asked to leave after a full memory wipe so that nothing of the simulated life, which had seemed to last years, would remain, and the person would return to the land of the stars. A wise one asked whether a second chance should be given, and Irfan said no, because whoever had not planted the seeds of the other life within did not deserve it and would not be able to live among them, breaking the harmony of their community. Yet the person could choose to attempt the simulation again and perhaps succeed. They voted and set the simulation to begin the next morning, and that night Irfan tuned the drive on his small craft and set off to search for his father. See you in part 2.